welcome back to Interjections Champions of Italy edition. After a sizzling 2-0 victory over Torino, the entire world was watching. I'm your host, Andrew, Irfan, Miko, and Jay with me. Irfan, what's happening, man?
Not too much. Excited that we got the win in a game that doesn't mean that much. But that game was a tough one to kind of go through. But looking forward to talking about it, and I think more importantly, all the celebrations that are happening currently and happened right after the match was perfect. So it's good to be champions. It's good to play games that don't really matter too much. So I'll take it.
Irfan's eyes didn't really perk up until Asllani came onto the pitch around the 65th minute. He was sleepwalking through the match before then.
That is true.
Jay, how's it going?
No comment. That game was great, exciting. I'm very happy for all the families who got to attend and witness that spectacular, thrilling, back and forth, epic contest. Let's get into it.
I could not tell. Were you describing the Inter-Torino match or the Milan-Juve match there? They were just too similar.
I actually think the Juve-Milan match was actually better, which is saying a lot because that game was shit. But, yeah.
Miko, I know you're thrilled to be here with us, recapping that 2-0 win.
Yeah, nothing to add to T's comments. I'm like almost looking more to this, following this Sky live stream, or is it Inter live stream about the celebrations and the upcoming parade to Duomo, as far as I know.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Of course, the reason why the match was moved up to 6:30 in the morning local time for me was because they want to have the parade. They're going to go, I think it's a long procession from San Siro to the Duomo in Milano. So very exciting. And we'll be sure checking online, looking at all the videos, celebrations from the players, hopefully with a bit more class than last time Milan won. And they were making fun of Hakan during their celebration. I digress. So we can talk briefly about the Torino match. I know breaking down a meaningless 2-0 win is the most exciting thing in the world, but we do want to talk about it a little bit. So the first half was a bit of a snooze. Torino probably had the better chances in the first half, minus the one goal that Thuram managed to deflect out. But really, this match changed when there was an incident in the second half. About 3 minutes in, referee awards a yellow card on a foul on Mkhitaryan. VAR tells her to take a look at it, and it's basically overturned into a red card. They called a last man tackle. Player sent off, and from there we really controlled things. So Irfan, I want to get your thoughts on, first off, that incident. Did you think it was a yellow? Did you think it was a red? In my opinion, you could argue it wasn't quite last man because there was another Torino defender back there, but he wasn't super close to Mkhitaryan. So curious your thoughts on that, and if you have any thoughts on just Inzaghi's decision to roll out the full strength lineup.
Yeah, I thought the red card was fine. I mean, I think if initially the referee would have given a red card, based on the play, then it might have been a little harsh. But the fact that they all had time to go back and look at it and then decide that it was worthy of a red made sense to me. I think that's the proper way to kind of handle the whole situation. So yellow on the pitch and then red via VAR was probably okay. The tackle was it was kind of dumb. They were beat, so it there wasn't much that they could do about it. In terms of the lineup by Inzaghi, I just maybe it was because it was the kind of championship clinching, or not clinching, but like the championship match where we were going to get that guard of honor, and where the fans were in attendance, excited to celebrate the Scudetto. So he ran essentially what's a full starting lineup out there. I think maybe absent, two players, but it just didn't make a lot of sense to me personally to run this team out there. I mean, it would have almost been better if you start like more of the second team and then give the fans and the stadium the chance to applaud when you bring in some of your starters to just kind of end the match. But for some reason, I was hoping that Inzaghi would do that, but I wasn't expecting him to do that. I think he's so set in his ways in certain things that he was going to start most of the starters anyway. So I'm glad we got a little bit of a mix, with Augusto and stuff, but otherwise it was just like there wasn't much else there. So unfortunately, I kind of expect that from Inzaghi. I'm hoping going forward that that's not going to be the case. I really do want to see, 70, 80, 90 minutes of Buchanan and Aslani and even Sanchez and Arnautovic. I'd rather see, them kind of play out more minutes. So it'd be nice to get a little bit more mix, but I again, we all know Inzaghi. I'm not anticipating that he's even going to do that. He might still want to just play Mkhitaryan 90 minutes a match, and in this match it kind of worked out. I mean, Mkhitaryan had the assist for the first Hakan goal, and he basically drew the red card. So again, effective player, but at some point you got to wonder if we could see some of the younger guys.
So Hakan puts together a really impressive brace today. The first goal was a wonderful team goal, strikes it with his left, just one of the better finishes of the season from the team. And then after Thuram wins the penalty, Lautaro and Hakan have a heart-to-heart, and they decide Çalhanoğlu is going to take the penalty, which to everyone's relief was the outcome, and he goes and just buries it top left corner. It was perfect. Jay, what did you think of Hakan's performance today, and then just overall his, how well taken the 2 goals were?
Yeah, thankfully we have at least one guy in the team who's got a great ability to execute from the penalty spot, as well as just a technical finisher. And it's hard to describe what a technical finisher is, but I think you know it when you see it. To give an example, Lautaro is the polar opposite of a technical finisher. So having a player like that really goes to show, or just really shows its worth over the course of a season. He's on 13 goals or 14, was it? Or was it even 15? I can't remember, but he's on.
He's close to chasing down Vlahovic for second most goals in the league.
Yeah. So obviously most of those are from the penalty spot, but shows that when he's given a chance in the box like that, like Lautaro's not scoring that shot, you know what I mean? Barella probably puts it into Rosette as well. So, and Mkhitaryan is atrocious in front of goal. So having a midfielder who can put those away, talking about the first goal, of course, that's super important for us. And I think hopefully Zielinski will be able to add some of that as well. So I got to say, Çalhanoğlu was probably the only real standout performer for me. I didn't really... The game was difficult to pay attention to, let's put it that way. And I didn't really find many others stood out that much, although to be honest, no one really had to stand out that much. Yeah, I'm struggling to really come up with much more with regards to that particular game. Hakan, 8 out of 10 performance. That penalty was beautiful. And my last comments is Buchanan sucks. Let's sell him right now. Get back our money, whatever we pay for him, 7 million or whatever. 0 out of 10 transfer.
That's actually the point I want to hit on next with Miko, which is, Miko, I just want to get your thoughts on the kind of guys who typically don't play much. You got a good run of minutes today. You got Aslani, Fratesi, and Buchanan. I actually agree with Jay's assessment. Buchanan was not good today. I'm really curious also just why we keep playing this guy on the left when he's a right wing back. It's like, once again, Inzaghi has this tendency to pigeonhole players into roles, and to take a guy who has spent his entire career playing right wing back and tell him, by the way, you're a left wing back now, is just something I can't quite figure out, especially with Darmian still on the pitch. At least Darmian has legitimate minutes at left wing back. I don't know why you just don't slide him over. So, Miko, curious your thoughts on the rotational players who got some minutes today.
Yeah, I would say none of them played particularly well when they came in. They were like 3 guys in the hour mark, and then a bit later the Arnautovic and Buchanan. And well, of course, Sanchez was like active as usual, but he didn't do too much in the end. And Fratesi, I think he was pretty almost invisible, in a sense that they couldn't get balls to him in the box, and I don't know, he was just there filling a role, not doing too much. Aslani, he was of course more on the ball, but he was just smashing the shots wherever, and the corners aren't good, and I don't know. His contribution has I think his contribution has gone down throughout the season. It's in terms of with the ball. So I don't know. It wasn't a good game by him. Sorry, Irfan. And Arnautovic didn't do much either. He was there just like a center forward to be there on the box, so that we would be able to create a bit more with Sanchez back to the midfield, or like attacking midfield position. But yeah, and then Buchanan, man, I don't know. I'm a bit curious why he's been playing on the left. Like, he hasn't played a single minute on the right yet. So that's quite that's interesting, to say the least. But I don't know. I remember we talked about this before, that Buchanan playing on the left allows him to play like in a way that he cuts inside. But he's doing that so far too much. But at least it gives us the opportunity to do so. I don't know. Maybe that's the point for Inzaghi, that he wants to try this type of a player to play so-called the wrong side of his usual position, so that he would cut inside. But then it's a bit strange, because we haven't seen that too much, that he would be cutting inside. He's been trying this kind of like, if he can go past his marker, but I think has he ever succeeded in that? At least in this game, he didn't.
No, he has not beat a man off the dribble yet this season.
Yeah, so it's a bit iffy. Like, yeah, would like to see more from him for sure. And I don't know, commenting on this Inzaghi's decision to play again the starting lineup. I kind of love it, in a sense that people expect, like we expected, or talked in the previous episode, that we want to see the whole bench playing and so on, and then we see the regular starting lineup playing there still. But maybe we see that later. There's gonna be 2 away matches next, so maybe those are different then. But yeah, or maybe he's chasing the points record. I don't know, but yeah, it was kind of funny. I laughed at it when I saw the starting lineup.
I think Buchanan gets a bit of a. This is going to sound very strange, but I think we have a tendency to go easy on Buchanan. Like, this is impression that he's some exciting, young, raw talent from America. If I'm not mistaken, he's like 25. So he's not young, and he's been in Europe for a decent amount. So obviously we bought him from Club Brugge, and I think he played in the Europa League, maybe even the Champions League. And let's just say hypothetically, he was he was Belgian or something. We'd be saying, like, look at this fucking this B grade Salamakers, just some mediocre Belgian kid from Brugge who is 25 and past the kind of young talent stage, but isn't really showing much either. So if anything, I want to say we need to be a little bit harsher on what we expect from him. Maybe he doesn't play right back because he's somehow even worse at right wing back than he is at left wing, which is difficult. And yeah, I concur that he has not done a successful move playing on that side, even though I've spoken positively about the idea of playing him on the left, because I like the idea of a fast, wide player cutting inside and attacking, the marker, like an inside forward, like an inverted winger type thing. But yeah, as Andrew remarked, he's yet to successfully execute a single thing. I remember in one of his first games, he did like a step over, advanced like a meter, and then lost the ball. And for some fucking reason, Instagram put that into the account, put that on the Instagram, and I'm thinking, what am I supposed to be watching here? Like, why would you highlight this moment as something to be put on like an Insta reel? But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's still early days for sure, but as frustrating as someone like Dumfries can be, I'm picking Dumfries 100 times out of 100 over anything I've seen from Buchanan. Maybe I'm being too speedy with my judgment, but he's looking like he's going the Valentino Lazaro route. Ironic because he was playing against Lazaro today. So take a good look at what your future looks like, Tejan, because you played against it.
Staring you in the face.
Exactly.
I am enjoying how much our marketing team is relentlessly like using Buchanan as a marketing tool. Like they tweeted out something like, Buchanan's the first Canadian to win the Scudetto. Or like they're posting these like half-baked dribble attempts during games like, whoa, watch this. An attempt to
He's the only Canadian to ever play in Serie A. It's like how McDonald Mariga was the first Kenyan to win the Champions League or something because he played with us. Like it's such a meaningless stat. And ironically, Bellanova looked he was Torino's best player by a mile, I think, and he looked a lot more mature than he did with us. And obviously, yeah, the whole argument is that a full season playing as a starter in Torino is what allowed him to reach that maturity. But I just find it ironic that we let Bellanova go because we didn't want to pay that $7 million and then signed this bum for $7 million at the exact same amount. It's almost fate, isn't it?
My big gripe here is I agree he has not looked good at all. But you signed this guy, which I assume is because Dumfries is being sold this summer mercato. DeMarco is staying, Augusto is staying. So why are we trying this guy a left wing back? Like even if the plan is for him to be a left wing back permanently, then why did we sign him? We already have two legitimate, we have two of the best three left wing backs in the league. What are we doing? It makes absolutely no sense. Either we made a horrible mistake signing him, or Inzaghi has completely lost the plot. And as a result, if we do sell Dumfries, we're going to need to look for another right wing back this offseason.
I think the case is that we got him like on the winter mercato, and it was like more like I don't know, some kind of a insurance in case there's some issues on the flanks, but we've managed without him basically. And
Dumfries was injured at the time, as was Quadrado. I do remember that, but
but then
still.
Yeah, Darmian still played, and we had Bisek, so there wasn't like a we managed without Buchanan, and I don't think Inzaghi sees him as a player like he needs to use him. Inzaghi just uses the players he wants, and he's not considering like this kind of player if this kind of player doesn't give him what he wants. And I think there's gonna be evaluations in the summer then that who's gonna be part of the team, and I think that will I assume that will show that what's gonna be Buchanan's role at Inter in the future. If he stays, I assume he will stay and he will play more. And as I'm always optimistic, I hope that we kind of learn to play with him better and use his strengths better than what we've done now, because I think we don't play him to a position so that he would be able to like simply triple through his or triple pass his marker effectively. At the moment, I think we play just pass the ball to him, and sometimes he tries to triple, but it starts from like there's no speed. It's a static position, and then he starts to this dribbling, and I don't know. I think that's extremely hard for any player if you are not like, I don't know, Mbappe or someone like that, or as skilled and fast. just from a static position to do this kind of
Yeah.
dribbling.
The thing is, this is Inzaghi, right? This is the dark side of Inzaghi. Like he we think about players like Bisek and even I'll say Aslani ironically, and neither of those guys would ever get a minute of play unless it was absolutely necessary. Like if Hakan was injured or suspended, then you might see an Aslani start. Otherwise, you'll see some garbage time minutes. And Bisek really came on when we had a bit of a center back crisis and he had to play. Now, he played really well, but he had the benefit of playing for, being a starter in a match, just like Aslani has had the chance to be a starter in the match. Like Buchanan, like coming in, giving him 15, 20 minutes a match, it's really hard to evaluate him. Like I understand the concerns of what all of you are saying, and I understand that he hasn't necessarily made the best use of the minutes that he has played, but he had a pretty decent play today too, where he earned a corner. He kind of took on Bellanova, I think, and got to the touch line, and Bellanova slid tackled, and we got a corner out of it. So he has some potential. I like his attitude, but it's really, really hard to evaluate him or to dismiss him until we see more minutes. And I'd love to see him get an actual start and have him play. But if Inzaghi is going to refuse to do that because of the depth that we have at that position, then it's really hard for us, I think, to be able to evaluate him. But this is one of those things with Inzaghi, right? There's so many good things about him, but to me, this is a huge drawback. He doesn't really trust young players, and maybe there was no need to rely on or to try to trust young players. Why gamble when you're trying to win a Scudetto and it's super important, not just for your career, but for the club's goals? But at some point, especially now, this is why I want to see, Bisek from the start. This is why I want to see Aslani from the start. This is why I want to see Buchanan from the start. Give them 70, 80 minutes and see what they're made of. Even if that, results in inefficient play or even, giving up a goal or not scoring a goal. At this point, you got to see what you've got with these guys. And if you are going to try to move on from Dumfries, then, you owe it to yourself to figure out what you've got with this guy. And yeah, I don't understand why he doesn't play him on that side. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but I view that more as an indictment of Inzaghi than I do necessarily as an indictment of Buchanan, just because I think we don't have enough knowledge, enough data when it comes to Buchanan at Inter.
I like how we spend such a disproportionate amount of this podcast talking about a guy we spent $7 million on in January, but it's one of the few hot button issues at the club right now. So worthwhile, I think. So that's probably it from a Torino match standpoint. What we want to do for the rest of the season is, since the games mean less than they did previously, we want to spend some time recapping the positional groups for the next few weeks. So today we're going to talk about the forwards, a year in review, and provide our thoughts on what we think is in store for that position heading into the summer. So if we talk about the forwards, this group was heavily overhauled in the summer, right? Because Dzeko leaves to Turkey, Lukaku flirts with Juve, and as a result, we're basically starting from scratch with Lautaro being the only remaining player. So the biggest thing, the biggest conclusion for the year, in my opinion, from the forward department was Lautaro taking a step forward. And it really felt like he was a new player at times this year, especially earlier in the campaign. We were seeing a side of him we had never seen before. And then February hits, and we're sitting here on April 28th, and he hasn't scored a goal since February in the league. And it feels a lot like Lautaro of old. So maybe starting with Lautaro,
Sell him.
Miko,
Sell him.
That's why I'm not starting with Jay. Miko, what do you think of Lautaro this year? Do you think he grew as a player? Do you think this was mostly just a result of him now being the guy? And just how concerned are you about the scoring drought that he is still in?
I think he had a great season. He was the club captain for the first time, and like led from the front, and it was not a perfect season because of the ending, or like this cold drought we are witnessing now. But I think he was absolutely great in this season, and I would go and say that he did his job in like, what was it, in 7 months, or how was it, August, September, October, November, December, January. Yeah, he did his job in 7 months and almost like secured us the Scudetto with his goals. So then this lack of goals in the latter part of the season, it's almost like irrelevant. So I wasn't concerned. Uh, like I've talked before, I haven't been concerned about his lack of goals now, because we get the goals from elsewhere. So it's just fine. But at the same time, gotta comment that it's a bit typical to him that he's having these kind of periods, and I think this time it's even longer period than usually. He hasn't had this long periods without goals. For example, last season they were like maybe a month or something like that, but not like this. This is like 2 months, 2 months now. So it's a bit different, and but still something which I think he won't overcome ever. So he's not gonna be your 30 plus goal scorer who will keep scoring constantly all the time. That's the feeling I'm getting from Lautaro, because he's had many seasons at Inter and he's progressed every season. And this season he has really stepped up, like taking the responsibility because he's the guy. But still, like we're seeing now, it is like this. He just can't get the goal now, and like today against Torino, team really tried to like set him up, and he got that scoring chance in the end, or it was quite maybe in the 80th minute or something, I don't remember. And he totally missed that shot, or like it was straight to the keeper and it was weak, and that's just who he is, and I'm fine with him. It's okay. We need to. I'm not concerned with him at all. No, nothing like that. we need to renew him, and he's the perfect captain for us. No issues with him, for me.
Miko, I noticed you failed to mention his penalty shortcomings in your discussion.
Convenient omission. Ask the lawyer what we think about this omission of fact.
I think it was definitely willful and purposeful. But just to kind of take over from what Miko was saying, it's really hard when you look at Lautaro over the course of the season to say it's been anything but a successful season for him. Just he literally, I think, for a while completely carried us. His partnership with Thuram has been really good. His leadership as captain has been really good. I'm really trying not to let some recency bias in his kind of current form get in the way. I mean, he's never been that super, as Jay says, like that super technical class finisher, right? The kind of player who, when he gets in front of goal, has just this like instinct to place a shot, with the right curve, with the right velocity, with the right location. Like he's just never been that kind of player. He's always been a more kind of instinctual, finisher. Now for me, the biggest concern I had going into the season was for him to actually be that first striker and not play more of like a second striker or support striker. And I think in that sense, he's certainly done pretty well, and he still does a lot of good things outside of goal scoring. And I don't mean just his pressing on defense, which, has become kind of like a laughable meme for Inter fans. It's also like what he does in the build up play. Yeah, it's what he does to support. It's his movement that he makes in a lot of cases, to free up Thuram. And it's his interplay with not just the wings and the midfield, but also with Thuram that I think make him extremely valuable. If you ever had any like questions as to what how to assign value to that situation, like you can look at what kind of Real Madrid has been dealing with after they let go of Benzema, right? Like Benzema scores goals, but he does so much other stuff as part of their attack that it is so important that whereas they were winning games consistently and easily with him, it's been a struggle without him, even though they have some of the greatest talent in midfield and on the wings that you can imagine. So it's one of those things where I think as Inter fans, we sometimes expect Lautaro to be this, almost 40 goal scorer. But the reality is that like you look at like pretty much any great forward in the league today, with or even in, European football right now, because you got to, get past the Messi and Ronaldo numbers. And they're all, they all have like massive gaps in form at times. Like even someone like Holland, who everyone kind of universally praises, gets pocketed so often and is so limited in every stretch of the game, other than just kind of the strength and speed aspect of it. And sometimes his finishing is really poor too. So again, like I feel like we sometimes expect something from Lautaro that is almost unrealistic from forwards. But with that said, it's not unreasonable to expect him to have some better shot placement and to score goals and not go on massive droughts. Like you do expect that from a player that you think is, going to be your highest paid player and is probably, close to world class, if not world class at his position. So I think if you look at his year in the long term, I think it's been a success. And I'm trying not to let his current form kind of get in the way. But the penalty thing is definitely, definitely, definitely very concerning. We're lucky in that we have Hakan, who is like just out of this world when it comes to penalties. Like he, I don't think he's missed one this whole year, and he's knocked in like what 15 or 16 of them or something like that. So it's one of those things where we've I think not felt the pain as much because we have such a solid, kind of superstar penalty taker. But, if there was anybody else who was even slightly above bang average, like, a couple of these matches would have been 1 point instead of three, and you never know what happens. So Lautaro definitely, I think, needs to work on his penalties. And I don't know, it does feel like his body language and everything towards the end of this season has not been that great. I do like the fact that the team really does care about him and tries to set him up. Like you saw Hakan try to give him the penalty today. And Lautaro, did the right thing by passing it back to Hakan. In a 1-0 match, I would definitely prefer Hakan to take that penalty. But, you could tell, and then the players later, like Miko said, were trying to set him up for a shot. Like they were actively looking for him to kind of get back on the score sheet. So I do like that he has the support of his team. He's clearly well liked. But yeah, this ugly head that rears itself sometimes with him, where he goes on this like massive drought. I think we're lucky it's happening later in the season where everything's kind of already settled, but he still has to cut that out of his like game.
So next up, we can talk about Thuram, who, when he arrived in the preseason on a free transfer, I think a lot of people were excited. This was a guy we'd been linked to for a couple of years before he had that devastating knee injury. So he arrives on a free transfer, and he looks absolutely horrible in the preseason, where he's not quite fitting with the team. He's not scoring the ball, and everyone is concerned. And he alleviated our concerns real quick, because really from day one, he has been a contributor to this team in terms of scoring goals and in terms of assists. He's really, I believe he has like 10 goals, 10 assists thereabouts in league play, which is really impressive. He's a well-rounded forward. So Jay, what are your thoughts on Thuram's contributions this season? And of course, he's been linked to a lot of moves away from the club. He has this exorbitant release clause. So also curious Do you think there's a possibility he gets sold this summer? And if so, like what's your price for him?
Sorry, I'm gonna correct quickly. It's 12 goals and 11 assists in Serie A.
Yeah, thank you, Miko. And actually, while we're issuing corrections of incorrect things I say, a listener let us know that I was in fact wrong. And while Juve issued a marketing campaign showing they were going to put a third star on their kit prematurely, it turns out I just fell victim to the marketing campaign and they weren't actually allowed to do so. So thank you to the listener who pointed that out.
I would also like to issue a correction to Irfan's earlier statement where when he was talking about Lautaro's penalties and said, thankfully, we haven't really felt the pain. I felt plenty of fucking pain, mate, from Lautaro's missed penalties. Let's go back to Inter 1-0 ahead against Bologna, 10-man. Lautaro standing over the ball, misses the penalty, and then we lose at home to a 10-man Bologna. Let's go back to Lautaro failing to convert a penalty in the derby against a meme keeper in Tatarusanu. But anyway, correction issued. Regarding Thuram, like obviously it's been a very successful first season for him. He's shown up in a lot of the big games, so that's something that I personally place extremely high value on because I think I have a really hard time kind of warming to players who do the opposite and shy away on the big stages. So Thuram is my respect for that. Very, very early on into this podcast's beginnings when we were talking about the Mercato, at that time we had signed Thuram as a free agent and we were actually still trying to sign another big striker. So it wasn't immediately clear whether Thuram was meant to be a starter or a backup. We were still chasing Lukaku, and then that whole Scamacca thing happened, and we were perhaps not really seriously, but toying with the idea of signing Balogun and scoped out Taremi, but Porto wanted some fucking 30 million or some nonsense. And then we ended up with Arnautovic, and then it became clear what the hierarchy would be here. And that Thuram would indeed be a starter. And I remember remarking at the time that there's no option for him but to be the starter, and we have no option but for him to deliver. And by and large, I think he has. So we have options here. Like we can sell him if we want, and it's obviously pure plus Valenza. As to what amount I would accept for him, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Perhaps a minimum of like 55-ish, I guess. I saw that his release clause is 85, but realistically, no one's going to pay that. And I don't think Thuram is much of a technical finisher either, to be honest. And when you see the kinds of numbers that big forwards tend to go for, they do tend to be a bit more technically astute than some of our guys. But going back to what I was saying about us having options, we can sell him if we so really wanted, or if like a really good offer came in. And we can keep him and not suffer too much. He's not someone we need to sell in terms of he's letting us down so badly that we need to upgrade on the player, That's like, or, he's so old or whatever that we can't really, that we need to look towards the future, for example. That's what is essentially happening with Mkhitaryan and Zielinski, we hope. But Thuram, like I said, is in a good place. He plays well. He's obviously a good player, big game player, like I said. Might not be the most clinical finisher or the most technically skilled guy, but still good enough in those areas that he doesn't cost us too much, I think. And like I said, if we chose to sell him, we could bring in a decent amount. It's kind of a side point to Thuram, but I really think we should move heaven and earth to sign Xerxes this summer. I think he has a higher ceiling than Thuram. I think he's got great mentality. And as far as I know, he's captained Bologna at times as well this season, despite being quite young. He's very fast, faster than Thuram. Thuram's a powerful runner, but he's not like super quick. Xerxes quick. On top of that, Xerxes, you can just see by the way he plays, he's just extremely technical, extremely smart with his feet, and with his head as well. So, the obvious question is, where's he going to play, or who's he going to bench, or is he going on the bench, and does it become too much of a luxury? And my answer to that question is we're guaranteed a minimum of 51 games next season. We play in a 2-striker formation with 2 reliable strikers, one of whom goes missing for months at a time. We need a non-Taremi backup, or not backup, a rotation option. And so Xerxes is the kind of guy who will hopefully give Inzaghi a bit of a selection headache, and not in the way that Buchanan gets Eriksen minutes. Like Xerxes is the kind of guy who you can throw on at halftime if Lautaro is having a shocker or whatever, or is a guy you can bring on in place of one of the midfielders and play with like a kind of somewhat of a front 3 as well. So there's a player that I really think we should, like I said, move heaven and earth to try and sign. Having said that, I fully understand how difficult it would be to sign him given the competition. There's another incredibly glorious club out there that wants to sign Xerxes, that needs a starting striker, a club with proud European pedigree. So, who can blame him if he wants to sign for that club, right? But when I think about Thuram, all I can think about is next season and bolstering that position with some real competition.
Yeah, it's hard not to watch Xerxes and be impressed by what he brings. I mean, he's dominated us a few times this season, and we talked about this on a previous episode, but he was really everything Correa was supposed to be when we signed him, in terms of this like forward who has ability to unlock defenses, dribble at them, unlock them with passes. Like he's a really impressive player. He's very young. I was surprised, like someone pointed this out the other day and I didn't realize this. He was actually at Bayern for a couple seasons when he was like 18 or 19. And, now he's made his way over to our league and he's thriving in it. Just a reminder, sometimes you don't want to give up on players too soon. The problem, of course, with Xerxes is we're talking a $35, $40 million transfer
60.
fee, probably straight cash.
60.
Is up to 60 now?
That's the real
yeah,
figure.
And it just... there you go. And it's just, we don't have that sort of money that we're aware of unless, Zhang opens up the purse strings or a sale is made. So the other player, of course, that we're linked to is the Icelandic guy whose name I can't pronounce ever, Gudmundsson.
Yeah. Just quick on Xerxes though, like we do have those. Sure. We have those cards. Fabian and Carboni are the 2 names mentioned frequently. I can't see a reason for Bologna not to want to keep Fabian. He's young. He's scored quite a lot for a player who isn't always a nailed-on starter as well, and his value is only going to increase as well. He's like there for Tesi pretty much. Like I think he's scored like 5 goals in like half a season or something. So in a half season's worth of like football, I mean, so. That's a pretty decent, bargaining chip to have, and Carboni stock seems to be rising. We allegedly turned down a 20 million offer from Fiorentina, so if we can put those cards on the table, and I don't like playing this, this football manager type game of let's add player B and player C to this deal to sign player A kind of thing. I don't really like doing that kind of stuff, but the papers are reporting it, and realistically, as you said, we don't have the cash to sign him outright. So if we are ever going to sit at the negotiating table, it needs to be through chips like this. But back to Gudmundsson.
Yeah, Gudmundsson's the other guy we're being linked to right now. He feels a bit more like a traditional forward to me than like a Xerxes in terms of style of play, a little bit more direct. Of course, his expected transfer fee is substantially less. I've seen around 25 to 35 million, so more affordable for a lesser player. So those are the 2 options really been linked to an attack. But maybe before we talk about bringing in another guy, let's pivot to talking about the guys we're stuck with, which is Arnautovic, who will surely be back next season, barring something strange, and then Sanchez, who's definitely on his way out at this point. So, Irfan, we got 4 goals combined from Arnautovic
Ugh.
and Sanchez.
Ugh.
Disappointing seasons from both of them. Sanchez maybe coming on stronger towards the end of the season. Why do you think Arnautovic particularly was so ineffective this year?
I don't know. He's just not that good. I think he's more of a volume guy. He didn't get a lot of volume with us. He did actually get a lot of playing time. I'm not gonna criticize Inzaghi for playing time with him like I've done for some other players. But I think both Sanchez and Arnautovic, they're just not. Take Arnautovic first. He's just not a very efficient scorer. And I don't think he's ever really been in his career. And he just, you could tell that like he got so many really good setup plays where the team just kind of served it to him on a platter and he couldn't finish it. And it's fair, I think, to criticize him, especially for the Atletico Madrid fixture, because that first leg he had so many chances, and yes, he ended up kind of knocking one of them in, but we should have won that match 2 or 3 goals, and then we're advancing in the Champions League. So I think it's fair to criticize him. I think he's been disappointing. He's had some really amazing assists for us. I mean, he seems like a consummate kind of team player. He plays hard, and is looking to set up players, and I've been impressed with his overall kind of hold up play and his like distribution generally. Like I feel like he plays that role well. But when you have a forward that you have coming off the bench, it's usually because you need a goal, and that's the one thing where he doesn't seem to be very proficient, and that's definitely a problem. He also doesn't have a lot of pace to run at defenders and things like that. So there isn't much that he offers other than kind of that standard target man play, which is of limited use usually if you need a goal or something like that late in the match. So I don't know. It hasn't been a great season for him. I've been disappointed. I expected more from him. I didn't think it was going to be a great signing, but I thought it would be enough to like supplement the forward ranks and make some key contributions. And I didn't really see much of that. And with Sanchez, it's just, again, you're looking at like this like kind of shell of a player that used to be incredible, and it's in a way it's kind of sad to see that he can't pull off the sort of stuff that he used to be able to pull off because the pace is just not there. He still has the vision, he still has the skill, but like the pace and the athleticism you need to be able to pull off some of the stuff that he wants to pull off is not there. So it's kind of sad to see. But he is also somebody who has not scored a lot of goals. In his defense, I feel like when he's on the pitch, he looks to be quite differential. Like he looks to prefer setting people up rather than taking the shot and scoring himself. Maybe that's just a function of the kind of role he's forced to play, usually dropping back into the midfield or shifting out wide to try to pick up the ball and make something happen. It seems like he's taken on more of a playmaker role versus like a goal scorer role. And so maybe that's explains some of it. But even with him, you can tell you're watching like a shell of a player who used to be incredible, and it's sad to see, but it is what it is. But clearly both of those guys are not good enough. Even in a backup role, I think we need something different. This is where, again, like the Inter Suning, Zhang, even Morata to an extent, way is so frustrating because these two positions should be positions that should be filled with, kind of younger, more promising players, and they're not. Like they're filled with these two veterans on inflated contracts who haven't done that great, and we're stuck with at least one of them going into next season. And then to kind of fix that situation with Sanchez leaving, we're signing Taremi, who's very similar in that sense. So I'd be okay if like maybe we had one guy who is like that wily veteran, but like to have a bench made up of those guys is just not, I think, good tactics. And that's what I'm worried about going into next year.
Let's talk about Taremi, who is coming here on a free transfer. So he was known for prolific goal scoring in Portugal. He's 31 now, and in his past couple seasons, he had 20 and 22 league goals for Porto. And you look at that and say, okay, this is the guy who, even knowing the Portuguese league is a step down, you might be able to come in and help us. And then it's all gone away this year. Porto are third in the Portuguese league. Taremi has only scored 4 goals all season, one of them being from penalty in league play. And suddenly you're wondering, what exactly are we signing here? Is this a player who is mentally checked out and just wants to leave because he was close to a transfer to Milan in the summer and that kind of fell apart? Is this a player whose age is starting to show? So it's actually turning to a big question mark signing, and we don't really know what to expect here. So, Miko, what do you think we're getting in Taremi?
Yeah, I can say that I've seen plenty of his games or anything like that, but the stats alone speaks that he can score goals. So I think that's not the issue, at least not for me.
He
But
could score goals.
yeah, of course. But the stat speaks for it's themselves. Like that's what he can do. But of course another thing is, can he do it at Inter? That's a different environment. Of course we could say that, well, Porto is like a top club in Portuguese league, and they have the similar pressure there and so on. He's been scoring in Champions League and he's been playing those kind of games. So maybe if we wanna be like optimistically looking at the situation, we expect that, okay, he's not gonna falter. He's gonna, well, of course you don't, but we others can think like that he's not gonna fall into pressure. Like I feel that Arnautovic did a bit, that he couldn't handle the pressure which came when you put that Inter shirt on and you are expected to you are expected to deliver. I feel that Taremi, he's been going through that at Porto all those years, but then of course Inter might be still a different thing to Porto. When it comes to his what kind of a player he is, I think he's a center forward, and my hope is that he's going to replace Arnautovic, and we will try to get rid of Arnautovic, or then Arnautovic will be like a fifth forward, and maybe the rumors are pointing a bit to that direction if we want to see it that way. And I don't have a problem with signing Taremi. I rather have him than Arnautovic as the, like, let's say, fourth forward, or a forward we need to bring in at the later stages if we need a goal. I rather bring in Taremi than Arnautovic in, because quickly commenting on Arnautovic season, I was a bit hopeful at the start, and he showed some small promises when he started playing, but then it didn't pick up ever, and then he had this injury, and then it was a bit hard to him to come back, and then when he came back, it wasn't too good, and it really never picked up, and his season was a clear disappointment, and to me it felt that he just couldn't handle the pressure correctly, and I don't see a good future for him at Inter, in a sense that he's simply not at Inter level, at least not mentally. So with Taremi, I feel that he's going to be better in that respect, but then what's gonna happen, that's another case, of course. At least I think he's gonna be a better penalty taker than Lautaro. So that's one positive we can see in this signing.
It is impossible to be worse.
Exactly.
So to recap, from a forward situation, we're expecting next year to have Lautaro, Thuram, Arnautovic, Taremi, and then hopefully a fifth signing, just because of all the extra matches we're going to be playing next year with this Club World Cup and all that.
Why are you forgetting Correa?
Of course. I was about to get there. So you've got Correa currently out on loan at Marseille. And if you don't know this, the stakes are we need Marseille to win the Europa League. So Marseille is in the semifinal. They have the longest odds of all clubs in the Europa League to win it. But they play Atalanta coming up here in a 2-leg semifinal. And then if they were to win that, they'd play the winner of Leverkusen Roma. So we've got a big rooting interest. I believe Correa has not yet scored a goal for Marseille, despite being there for 8 months now. He has not managed to contribute in any meaningful way. So desperately hoping this option becomes obligatory and they have to waste 10 million on him. Jay, I can hear you sighing into your microphone. I don't know if what do you think happened? Let me pose it this way. If Marseille does not win the Europa League and Correa returns, what do you envision happening to him?
Unfortunately, I envision him basically having a Sensi season where no club is even willing to well, obviously no one's going to be willing to buy him, but at this point, his stock has fallen so much that I'd be surprised if we can even find someone willing to loan him for a season, So there are no answers regarding the Correa situation. I personally don't want Marseille to win the Champions League because I'd like to see Atalanta win it, or if not Atalanta, then Roma. But what can you do? It's just one of those fat L's you got to take. So I don't know. Maybe we can just threaten to not register him for the squad and force him to take some shit loan at Las Palmas or something. Other than that, I don't see any way of us ever monetizing on this guy.
So he has 2 years left on his contract.
2
next year.
What?
Yep. So you've got 2 years left on his contract.
I think it's 1 year after this one. So it's the last year. Next one is the last one.
You know what? You're right. Correction. So let me pose this question then. Do you consider just golden handshaking him? You basically have 2 options. You can Sensi him, like you said, where you keep him around and he is in the fringe of the team. But we tried to sell Sensi to Leicester in the winter. You all saw how that went. So you basically have 2 options. You keep him around and as a dead body, or you golden handshake him like we've done with Lazaro, or not Lazaro. Who else
Sanchez.
Did we do this in the past? Yes, we did do this with Sanchez.
Vidal.
There was another failed signing we had. I just can't.
Vidal.
Yeah, that's another one.
I think
handshake go. Did we handshake Godin as well? I can't remember.
I think he did. Right, Godin got one. I'm pretty sure.
I know that we paid a lot of Nangolan's wage when he went to Cagliari. I imagine we're already paying some of Correa's wage right now, are we not?
I don't think so.
I don't think we pay, paying now, so I think it's a pretty good deal for us, especially with the option.
Yeah,
but I would comment that I wouldn't buy him out, or how to put it. Maybe the worst case is we don't buy him out and we keep him because we couldn't.
Miko believes in Correa. Miko thinks Correa is going to be our second leading goal scorer next year.
Absolutely not. I honestly, I can't stand watching him play for Inter. I just can't. I want him out immediately when it's possible. But I can see a nightmare scenario. We keep him because we couldn't do anything else in the summer to get the 5th forward situation resolved, and we keep him as the 5th forward, and then as some kind of a barbecue master at the same time. That I could see that kind of scenario, but I truly hope we at least I don't know. They usually don't do the loans if there's still there's only 1 year left of the contract. They don't do loans.
We tried to ever. I thought we tried to do that with Sensi. He was rumored to move to Leicester for a little while.
But yeah.
We were trying to sell him for $2 million, but Leicester had FFP issues where they could not take him. They had to take him on loan.
Yeah, I think. So then I think there was something
What has
something.
Leicester got FFP issues for? They're in the fucking championship. There's no Euro.
Yeah, but it's the EPL
Make more
FFP.
money than us.
They have the FFP in the EPL as well, so that was some kind of a fucked up situation. But anyway, I truly hope we get rid of Correa one way or another. Maybe even buy him out. I don't care. Just get him out.
Would you shake this man's hand?
I'm going to take that deafening silence as a no. All right, let's preview the Sassuolo match. I think we've covered everything we need to for the forward situation. So somehow the only team we have lost to this season in the league awaits us next. We've got 19th place Sassuolo away on the docket. Sassuolo fighting for their lives to stay up, and honestly, the situation is pretty bleak at the moment for them. They are, 4 points behind the drop at this point, 5 points behind the drop at this point, which is a combination of Empoli, Verona, Udinese, and Frosinone. So not looking good with only 6 matches left in the season, 7 matches left in the season for them. Berardi, of course, is out. The guy who owns us, the guy who owns Milan, he tore his Achilles a few months back, and their horrible form has corresponded with that. They just dropped a game to Lecce 3-0. Irfan, the Sassuolo team just isn't the same without Berardi.
Yeah, they're really not. I really like Berardi. He's one of my kind of favorite non-Inter players. And I hate Sassuolo, obviously, because they keep beating us when they have no business beating us. So with him gone, they're a much different and much, worse team. But I don't know. They've been our boogeyman team for a while. And it really depends on kind of what team Inzaghi puts out there. We don't have much to play for at this point. And if he's going to play the first team again, which, he very well might, then it's very likely that it should be a comfortable kind of win for us. But I don't know. He might roll the dice and throw out some of the reserves. And so then we'll have to kind of see what ends up happening. But Sassuolo is a much scarier team when they've got Berardi, and without him, as you can see in the results and where they are in the league, they're pretty bad. But they have literally everything to play for, and we don't. So I don't know. It's kind of like the kind of situation that you don't want to be in if we actually needed points. But here, I don't know what to expect, really. It depends, I think, entirely on what kind of lineup Inzaghi puts out.
They have Pinamonti.
Yes, the tip of the spear, Pinamonti himself.
I say let them do double over us.
They might, even if we don't want them to.
Yeah, entirely possible.
What do you think ultimately happens to these guys like Berardi and Pinamonti, Jay, if they go down? Do you think these are players who get sold on to other Serie clubs? Do you think they try to get Sassuolo back and fight into the league? Like, what do you think happens?
I think in the championship in England, you have more chances for some of the bigger name players to stay on in these smaller teams should they get relegated. Reason being that the championship just makes a lot more money than Serie B, and there's a capacity for some of these teams to actually pay pretty solid wages. So in Serie A, though, I mean, Pinamonti's not that good, so it's possible that Sassuolo might not be able to find a buyer for him. Likewise, Berardi, he's very loyal to Sassuolo, so there's a chance he could stay to try and, with the goal of getting them promoted again. But realistically, or rather ideally, Pinamonti is good enough to play in some Serie A team to some capacity, so it'd be a shame for him to have to go down to Serie B at this stage in his career. I think he's only 24 or something, so yeah, it's a bit too early for that. Likewise, Berardi could be a great player for many teams, including ourselves, for example. If we signed him, like, I'd infinitely prefer him over, fucking Taremi or maybe even Goodmanson. I'm personally not that thrilled with the whole Goodmanson prospect, but so yeah, Berardi's, like, as Irfan said, a great Serie A player who can still contribute to many teams. So it depends on him. It depends on the finances. It depends on, I guess, Sassuolo's capacity to keep / sell some of their players. So hard to say, but I think they skill wise, I think they definitely belong in Serie A. Would you take either of them if they went
I
down
would.
and they were cheap?
Yeah, I mean, I would take. I don't know about Pinamonti. I feel like he's kind of run his course for us. The amount of like money laundering that's probably gone on behind the scenes with Pinamonti for us has been, I think, it's paid itself. Berardi, I would definitely take. I mean, I just looked it up. He's still only 29 years old. I mean, he'll be probably 30 by the time the next season starts. But like, it's just the guy is just such quality. And it'd be such a change of pace for us to have somebody like that I would take him in a second. Just looking at their other kind of players in terms of like their market value, they've got Henrique in central midfield. He's only 26. He's a decent player. They've got Llorente on the left wing. He's only 25. He's a decent player. They've got Daniel Baloka at defensive mid. They've got Kumbula at center back. I mean, these aren't, and Thorsvet, they're not terrible players. Like if the fact that they're going down is pretty shocking to me,
Yeah.
even with the injury to Berardi. So it'd be very interesting to see if there is some sort of a fire sale because they go down. And if there is, I think there's actually decent players that, a lot of clubs in Serie A could get. A lot of these players will probably start at a lot of Serie A clubs. So I think that it's going to be tough for them to retain those players. Like you said, maybe Berardi pulls like what was it
Del
like? Who was it, like
Piero.
Del Piero, yeah, or like was it like Rocky or somebody who also went down with their club and came back, or Micoli at Palermo or somebody like one of those players, right? That's just so it's like the namesake of the club essentially, and maybe he'll ride it out, but it's going to be hard for them to keep some of these guys who are in their mid 20s. They're not going to want to go down and play in Serie B, especially if they can get another Serie A gig somewhere.
What about
In a vacuum.
I was going to say
Go
if Milan want to win the derby, they should sign Consili straight away.
Honestly, in a vacuum, I would take Pinamonti like over a lot of our forward options because like he's very average to mediocre, but he stays fit. He's younger. He's good for 10 goals a year. Like in a vacuum, I would take him while acknowledging it just doesn't make any sense financially because what he's going to cost / we're stuck with Arnautovic. So it's unfortunate we had to sell him like we did because he'd be a good just bench option who is reliably mediocre, who you can rely on, sort of what you needed from Arnautovic, and he wasn't. But yeah, it is really crazy to me that this team is going down because when you look at the names in the team sheets, this is one of those teams who's like, okay, you recognize these guys, you've seen these guys play well, but that's also because Sassuolo seems to beat us every 2 out of 5 times.
I think it's largely because of the coaching change. I said it from the second they sacked Dionisi that they were going down. I still stand by that. I mean, it's possible they turn it around, but starting with a victory against us. But yeah, I think that. Admittedly, I don't know a ton about the guy that replaced Dionisi, but Dionisi was like the spiritual successor to De Zerbi. They played a similar brand of football under him, and that was Sassuolo's whole kind of shtick, right? And we talked about this in previous episode, how they kind of earned their place in Serie A, not by being one of these, like dog shit teams that comes up and just hangs on for dear life by playing the most turgid football. Sassuolo were going out there and, beating Juventus at Juventus and, beating us and Milan every 6 months. So, and playing with attacking flair. And a lot of that came from Eusebio Di Francesco to begin with, then De Zerbi, then Dionisi. So there was like a lineage in coaches. And then when they kind of ended that lineage by sacking Dionisi, admittedly he was underperforming, but still ending that lineage of like-minded coaches, I think that's when they kind of signed their own death warrant. And so, yeah, it is what it is, I guess. And like I said, Berardi I would take in a heartbeat, but I worry with the. I mean, look, if Berardi's available for like 10, 15, I think you have to do it. But is he the same player after returning from an injury like that? Albeit it's not a ligament, it's not like an ACL injury, but still, it's not a minor injury either. So I don't think Spinazzola has been the same since his Achilles. So
I can see how we could use Berardi for real.
he'd just be the number two. He'd just be one of the two strikers, and you'd start
But
him on the right.
Has he ever played there? He's always been this right winger.
The season before we signed Politano, they played 3-5-2. I think they played 3-5-2 with Berardi and Politano was a two up front, and
but that's like 17 years ago or something. So
no, well, but you're right. He
at Euros had him play striker.
Yeah, he could play second striker.
At Euros,
for sure.
He played. Yeah, Mancini at Euros had him play as like the false nine. So like I think he can play centrally.
I think he played the right winger in the Euros.
You wouldn't play him as centrally. You'd have him kind of like playing off the main number 9. So he'd be like the kind of roaming number 10, 11 type guy who, like someone like Xerxio would be pretty similar as well.
Thuram.
Yeah, even Thuram was.
I don't buy this. I don't buy this thing.
Or even Sanchez, to be honest, he could do whatever. He could do everything Sanchez does, but like way better. And he has a knack for scoring goals, and he doesn't need to be in the box to score goals. Like I don't know. I feel like he could be somebody who could definitely play not only that playmaker role, but also a goal scorer role. And I've rated him very highly for a long time, and he plays really well against us. He's also really good at set pieces. So I don't know. I feel like he would be a great signing if you can get him for a good deal, especially for a club that's kind of cash strapped like us.
Nico, I'll let you finish your rebuttal.
Yeah, and make sure you mention Dzeko, because I know it's coming somewhere.
No mentions of Dzeko coming. I just feel that Berardi would maybe fit Inter as this type of I don't know, ace in the sleeve type of player, something you bring in when you need something, some spark or something from the bench, but not.
That's what you want from a bench player, though. Like our bench players are just.
Yeah, but imagine this season when we had only Sanchez on the bench, and it's kind of changes the way we play. It forces us to change the way we play, and with Berardi, I feel that it would force it even more. I don't buy this thing you are talking about here, guys.
Yeah, fair enough. He has 9 goals in 17 games this season before he got injured, so. There's obviously still a player there. I get what you're saying. Tactically speaking, it's it might not be the most natural fit. I think that's probably a good thing because I think you want some tactical flexibility. I think you want someone to offer something different, and Berardi can certainly do that. And I think most importantly, he fits our budget. He's only worth like 10, 15 million at this stage in his career. I think with his contract status, I don't know how many years he has on his contract. I think it's like 2 years on his contract.
Yeah,
it's actually 3. So
3.
But
3. Okay.
But I don't think it's too expensive given that he's an Inter fan. Going down.
Yeah. He grew up an Inter fan, so that helps too. And kind of relevant to all of this, I don't think it'll end up that way, but in the 60th minute right now, you've got Udinese beating Bologna 1-0, and they're 17th in the league. So Sassuolo might just be totally cooked at this point. I don't know what else they could really do.
Yeah, it really feels like they're going down, and us beating them might be the final nail in the coffin. So we can do some predictions, and maybe when you're doing your predictions, just touch on what you're expecting from a lineup perspective. But Irfan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll say, you know what? I Inzaghi is a creature of habit. I expect a near full squad, first team squad to go out there. I think he'll play all of his starters. I expect a full 90 minutes from Mkhitaryan at the least. I think Lautaro will play as well. And so I fully suspect that we'll put out an A squad, and I think we're going to win 2-0 pretty comfortably. I'm still not willing to give Lautaro the goal. I'm going to give Thuram a goal, and I'm going to give Barella a goal. 2-0 Barella and Thuram.
Jay, go ahead.
2-1 Sassuolo. 2 goals from Pinamonti. 1 goal from Pavard. Missed penalty by Lautaro.
Nice.
Wonderful. Nico, go ahead.
I think it depends a bit if Sassuolo gets any points today. If they lose today, I think we will win like, I don't know, 3-0, 4-0. Okay, that's maybe too much. We aren't playing for anything. Maybe I would say 3-1 for us. But if they win today against Fiorentina, then it could be more cagey. But I'm gonna go with 3-1 for us, and I don't know. Lautaro will get his goal finally, and then he can be subbed off, and then Thuram will get 1, and then is Dumfries back? Did he got only one?
Yes,
one
he was only suspended for 1 match.
Okay, so Dumfries will get the 1.
I knew Miko was going to give a goal to Lautaro. I knew it. I could just sense it the whole time.
Lautaro is not scoring for the rest of the season.
That's quite possible as well.
I appreciate you predicting Pavard will, be the last main contributor to get a goal this season. It seems like he was pushing for one today. He was getting up into the box. He was maybe a bit more involved than normal, so he's going for it. But they should have given him a penalty.
Pavard scored against us last season in the Champions League. I completely forgot.
Probably the last time he scored a goal.
So at least he has a goal at San Siro,
There you go.
I'm really hoping we rotate more in this game. I understand we played all the starters this game because this is like the parade day. They're about to, descend into the streets for the celebration. But now it's time to start rotating people. You're playing the 19th place team in the league. Let's give Frattesi a start against his old club. I don't know. There's really actually not too many people to start, but give Asllani 60 minutes from the top.
Amen.
Maybe actually play Buchanan our right wing back. Let's get these guys more involved. This is the game to do it. It's a road fixture against one of the worst teams in the league. With that being said, this Sassuolo team is completely cooked. So give me a 2-1 Inter win. I'll give Pinamonti a pity goal. And then contributions from Frattesi against his old club and Sanchez.
What if we what if we go out and put a 7-1 showing on them again? That would be incredible.
Maybe that would finally break the curse of the, just complete dominance they have over us, relatively speaking. Throwback to the Mazzarri days.
Speaking of dominance, Jay, have you had a chance to look at that Arsenal scoreline right now? Just curious for your thoughts.
No, what is it?
They're up. What is it? 3-0 on Spurs?
Yeah, 3-0.
For fuck's sake, I fucking hate Arsenal so much.
All right. Jay's hot betting tips.
Betting tips. Arsenal win the league, which mathematically ruins Inter Scudetto. No, I'm kidding. What games do we have in the next match day? We have. I'm going to give a shocking prediction here. Bologna actually fall out of 4th place and surrender it to Roma. And I think that Torino are going to beat Bologna 2-1.
Is it because Motta's not 1 foot out the door and the team can't?
Exactly. Motta's got his head. Motta's head is at Juventus. Xerxes' head is at Milan. And so, yeah, they're going to suffer from that. So they'll lose grip on that 4th place, maybe even drop to 6th. But I think it's too far gone at that point.
All right, well, see how it unfolds. So we'll be back next week. We'll do a midfield recap along with Sassuolo and a look ahead to the next match. So appreciate everyone listening as we wind down the season, and we'll catch you then.
Thanks. Catch you later.
Bye.